Hi everyone. This is Jamie here. It's nice to have you all here today live to just connect with you all and to share a little bit more through the Connect with Google experience. Again, I'm Jamie. I am part of the Asia Talent Outreach and Programs team, focusing on Connect with Google, connecting with you all in these means. Today I have here Steph with me to run through the General Cognitive Ability Interview Workshop with you today, and we hope you get a lot of practical skills out of this training, and just stay tuned with us for the next 20 minutes. And you will also have a chance to ask your questions live towards the end to Steph. I'll let Steph introduce herself as well.
Thanks for having me. Hi everyone, my name is Steph. I'm actually a business recruiter based in Singapore. So we're really excited today to share with you a little bit more about interview process, whether it's for a full-time role or if you're a student right now. And we're really going to deep dive into one key attribute, which is the general cognitive ability. So hopefully along the way, we'll cover it in depth, and feel free to add your questions to the chat box on the side so that we can answer them at the end of the presentation. Okay, so just before we start and deep dive into what the interview and how to help you tackle them, I just wanted to share a little bit about the process just for anyone who hasn't interviewed with us, or maybe you've pending application with us. So some of you may have applied where you've uploaded your resume. So if you don't know where it is on our career site, and you can find every role in every location there. Best way to filter it out is by location, or if you have a particular team that you're interested in, you can always go there, read up more, their team descriptions, and also more on the responsibilities, and if more details that you need, there's always a lot of information you can find on all our LinkedIn sites as well. So generally, once you've submitted your resume, how it starts is you do get shortlisted. If you are shortlisted, you will receive an email or contact from one of our recruiters. Now, our recruiters will connect with you and let you know what the timeline will look like, or if we will need to follow up with you at a later time. We try our best to get back to all candidates, but unfortunately, it's the high volumes, and because we want to make sure that we're screening every single candidate we have, we do take a bit of time to come back to you. So during the phone interview, you will be screened on your role-related knowledge and also the general cognitive ability. I'll share a little bit more about in detail for both, but assuming that goes well, you will move on to 3 to 4 on-site interviews that can be done in person if you're near a local office, or it can also be done over Google Hangout, where you will meet with the team or the interview panel. Once that is done, at Google, we take hiring process through a super calibrated process. So that's why we have 3 to 4 interviewers. They could be from different teams, or even the managers or peer level, or someone who's cross-functional. And what happens is we then have a committee review where everybody shares their feedback, and we ensure that we're hiring you and putting you in the best roles that fit your skill set. And assuming that goes well as well, then we'll make you an offer and hope to welcome you as a recruit. All right, so coming back to the key attributes that we do assess for all business interviews, there are 4 of them. So the first one is general cognitive ability, which we'll call GCA throughout this entire session. So for GCA, what we're really looking at is your problem-solving skills. How do you think about things? What are the kind of macro thinkings that you have, or which areas do you feel like you need to improve on when it comes to logical thinking, and also how we can deep dive with you on different scenarios or from your past experience. Then we think about role-related knowledge, which is the second thing here. Now, role-related knowledge, some of the frequent questions I get from candidates is, but what if I have no experience in the product? Or what if I have no experience in this team? Or I'm actually interested, I only check off like one skill set and I don't need the preferred qualifications. It's okay, as long as you meet the minimum requirements and you're able to share with us some research that you've done before your interview, and you're able to show us that you're able to problem solve through your GCA, we're also able to find teams that are willing to share with you and grow you into their teams. And then the third one is leadership. So leadership doesn't necessarily mean that we're looking whether you've led a team or whether you've had a successful, huge team that you've been able to wrap up. What we're looking for at Google when it comes to leadership is someone who's able to make good decisions. And when we say that, it means that when you're put into situations that are ambiguous, or if you had to independently make a decision, do you use data? Do you use quantitative data, qualitative data? And do you also reference check with your peers? And do you also look at historical incidents where you can reference? So we just really want to understand how you're able to operate in an environment that's constantly changing. Which brings me to the last one, which is on Googliness. So with Googliness, every Googler you're going to meet is going to tell you that they have their own interpretation of it. So Jamie, maybe you want to share with us what Googliness might mean to you.
Yeah, like Steph said, I think Googliness is so special to each Googler because you have kind of your own take on it, and you kind of make do with all the values that we have at Google, but you can make it your own. And for me, Googliness means just to be curious and open-minded and coming with questions and hoping to find solutions and answers, not only for ourselves, but for our team and for our users. And with that mentality, we're able to just solve for complex problems in such a fast changing, like fast environment that we live in, especially at Google, right? Things are so fast. So yeah, I think it's really important to come with that curious mindset at the beginning to get to that point of just, finding the answer. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, I completely agree with Jamie. I think from my perspective, it's also very similar where I like we want to come with questions, but we also want teammates that give you that confidence to make that. So being googly is also about being open to others, always challenging the status quo. Or when you hear a new idea that sounds completely crazy, or as we call it at Google, like a moonshot or 10x, still being able to think, okay, but how can I actually try to get there and being open about it? I think it's really googly, and I think transparency and challenging the status quo are definitely two key points that stick out for me that definitely relate. So cool. So just to share with googliness, just one thing, what we're really looking for again is it's going to be examples of, thinking about how you've done so in the past. Whether you're sharing a great experience you brought to your team, how you were a great team player, how you disagree and also agree to disagree, or how you bring and deliver your perspectives is something that we want to understand how you do when it comes to googliness. So with all the attributes that we've shared, there's definitely no right or wrong answers for all 4 attributes. It's really about how you communicate it. And one of the key ways or one of the key attributes with GCA is the same thing. There is no right or wrong answer. If you don't know the story of it or you've never been in that situation, it's perfectly fine. It's really about us trying to understand how you would problem solve in that situation. So being able to use the best knowledge you have at that point and being clear with understanding what the problem is what's important. So what we're really trying to understand during GCA interviews is first off, trying to evaluate your problem solving skills. When you make do with the resources you have, where is the best place you can land to try to problem solve in that situation? And then the second thing we're trying to look at is your work style. We're trying to understand how can we put you in a team or how can we make sure that we're setting you up for success at Google. So understanding your work style, how you like to be managed, having your hiring manager understand what motivates you is also really important, and how you think and structure your thoughts so that you can have a good two-way communication is something that's really important at Google. And last but not least, obviously, it's an opportunity for you to also understand what are the potential things that the team that you're interviewing with might face on their day-to-day. And maybe from there, you might also want to have follow-up questions for your interviewer to understand more about the team and challenges and things you think you could value add. So what are we actually trying to assess, and what are the 5 steps that I would recommend for you to think about or structure your answers with any GCA questions that you're going to go into? But before I do that, we'll think about the hypothetical. So there are 2 kinds of questions at Google that you may get for GCA itself. One is the behavioral questions, where it's about tell me about your experience, and it's going to be based off something you may have gone through or experienced before. The ones we're diving into now would be on the hypothetical questions that are scenario based that you may not have been through, but we're just trying to help you structure and brainstorm during the interview. So with the hypothetical GCA questions, here are the 5 things you would want to do. First, you want to start with understanding the problem. What are you trying to fix? What is the gap? If you don't know what it is, let's say the question is pretty vague sometimes, we're trying to challenge you to ask clarifying questions to identify what are you trying to solve. So always start with that. When you've done that, take a minute or 2. It's perfectly fine to tell your interviewer, hey Jamie, can I have a minute to just structure my thoughts? Have a notepad with you. That's super helpful for me, at least when I was interviewing. And you can just put them into point form. So first, problem statement. Once you've defined that, then go into the second point where you think about all your data points or factors that you'll consider, or like, for example, the resources you have, who is your audience, who are you trying to convince, what is your objective, and what will it take to get there. So you'll want to talk that through with your interviewer, because what candidates sometimes fail to do is do that. They tend to drive straight into the solution, and that's where we feel like you didn't prepare enough. So don't forget to do that. That's super important. Once you've been able to talk through all your factors, you could talk to them and say, okay, here are the 5 factors I want to share, or these are the things I would consider. Then you want to move into the third step, which is to identify your solution and really walk your interviewer through clearly how you would get there. So you could start off by saying, okay, so the 5 factors I think about is A, B, C, D, E, and then the steps I'm going to take is first, I would do this, then I'm going to do this, and I would use that factor to kind of support it again. So I hope you get the framework there a little bit. Once you've walked them through the steps of your solution, you want to then support your solution. So you want to tie it back with how would you be able to get the result and how would you measure that result, right? Which we'll touch on a little bit more and go in depth there. And most importantly, with all these things, you want to tie back to the result. So your communication is key in helping your interviewer follow you. So you need to remain concise, structured, but yet crisp and clear in terms of what you're trying to communicate. So this is an example question. I know it's pretty generic, but we'll give you a minute or two to kind of brainstorm what we just mentioned to you, and then we'll work on it together. So we'll just give you a minute there. Okay, so at this point, I hope you've seen the question and maybe you're trying it out, maybe you're not. But I would suggest just kind of taking down the 5 steps. I'll repeat them again to you. First, have you identified what the gap is? What are we trying to achieve? Not necessarily clear an event, right? We're not necessarily clear on the question yet. It's okay. Next, what kind of data points would you think about that goes into an event? What goes into opening the new office? Who do you need to work with? How much time do you think you have? Right? And then third, let's think about what do you think would be the best solution that you can come up with right now. And then 4, let's think about now, what are the results you're hoping to achieve and how would you measure that? How would you measure that this event will be a successful one? Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So maybe Jamie and I could do like a quick, let's reminisce our interview.
Oh, yeah.
So how do you build a strong response? Now that you know the 5 things to go through during a GCA hypothetical question, first off is to take a moment before responding to understand the problem. Now, Jamie, maybe we can think about some clarifying questions you could have asked.
Sure. So I could have asked something like, is it okay for me to assume the amount of time that I have? Some other questions I might have is, how many people are we thinking about? Is it a smaller office for a smaller office, or is it a huge office like the New York City office?
Yeah.
Another question would be, is there a certain product group that might be highlighted in this office? Maybe it might make sense to just bring focus to that group in particular.
Yeah, I love that. Exactly. So what Jamie's talking about, she's making assumptions. So during your interview, you can always say, okay, can I assume that I have a month to plan this or I have a quarter to plan this? And then you can assume your budget as well and say, can I assume that I have $10,000 to do this? Can I assume that it's going to be 100 attendees? Feel free to do so, and if your interviewer disagrees, they'll let you know.
Yeah.
But if not, what you're really trying to understand at the end of the day, again, at this point, is just what's your problem statement. So let's assume with Jamie's example that she's gone into assuming it's like launching a certain product because of a certain office. So let's go with Singapore.
Okay.
Since we're all based in Singapore. So let's go with Singapore and we're trying to launch something like Android phone.
Yes.
Okay, so you can assume that exactly like how we're doing it right now and then go from there. So now you're saying, okay, so my problem statement would be, I'm trying to launch a new office with a key feature of Android in Singapore. How will I make it successful? Now we can go into the second point, which is preparing. So we're not going to go too much in detail, but I'll tell you with any problem, think about first who's involved. Who are the people that you have working with you on this? So in this scenario, I think about who is supporting you on the day of the event. Is it a facilities team? Is it my team? Is the Android team getting involved? Is the Singapore team getting involved? Are people flying in? And then I would think about budget. How would I allocate it? What are the things I need to think about? Right? Do I need to think about food? Do I need to think about event space? Do I need to think about decorations? For example, do I need to feature more Android phones? Or do I need to invite any guest speakers that will also help us with their expertise area? Then I would think about also the time that I have in terms of logistically, where have we ever set up an office here? Do we have a neighboring office nearby? And where are we going to get our resources from? So that's just kind of, so I walk through those and then we'll go into the third step, which is the solution. So Jamie, you want to give it a go, or should I give it a go?
Yeah, let's give it a go. So I will say my part, and then how about you just build on top of my solution. So I think solution wise, you mentioned earlier that it's really important to consider metrics, right? So I think to know if we've been successful, we might start with the metrics first. So I think our budget would be a indicator of whether or not we were successful, and as well as some qualitative feedback that we might have gotten from our attendees. So I think apart from just structuring those metrics in the beginning, I think what I would do is solution by putting together a project plan with
Yeah.
all the people who are involved.
Exactly.
Maybe like, because we have, like, the assumption is a month out until we plan,
Yeah.
I would make sure that we have a reoccurring time to meet up with these folks and make sure
Exactly.
everybody is bought in, understands the purpose, and maybe something even like planning like an event like this, right? You just need to make sure that the communication is constantly flowing between the people who is responsible for making sure it happens,
Exactly.
right? Especially because events, I think it's all about making sure everyone's bought in.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts that you have there?
Yeah, so I think what we can build on from there, from Jamie's, is the project plan. So she's obviously thought already about how she would be measuring it in the beginning, how she would set up the forms, the surveys, and then she'll go into a project plan. Now, this is the part with any question you can elaborate what goes into your project plan, where these are the steps. First, you're going to go gather data, you're going to look at research on other offices, other products, and see how they've run historical events. You'll take stuff from there, you put it together, get feedback. And I think at the end of the day, when you're walking them through the steps, you just want to make sure you're balancing it out with quantitative data and qualitative data and how you execute. And then you could almost set up, like, I would supplement it by setting up like a tracking to share like how you would manage your timeline. So like every month we'll do like a check-in, and that's how I ensure that we execute the project well. And then with that, you can wrap up with the objective to share that at the end of this entire event, we will then send out our surveys to understand where we did well, where we can improve, any areas, and was it effective for our audience or not. And then from there, we can take the learnings back. So essentially, that's how you do. And then you also, along the way, you can always throw in thinking about anomalies. I think that's something that always helps the interviewer feel like you're having a different perspective, and that you're able to understand both sides of how the scenario could go really well, or where the areas you might want to keep an eye out for. So I hope that you're able to see this like slide right now with the how to build a strong response, so that you're able to keep these in mind when you're talking through your answers. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. We're just really trying to see how you problem solve your way through. Okay, so what we're going to do is think about measuring success. So sometimes in scenario questions, or like the behavioral or hypothetical questions, candidates tend to leave out measuring success. They tend to find a solution. So now that we really covered in depth on the preparation, how do you wrap it up and really show that you're going to measure something and how we can learn from things? I think that's also part of Google, very much Google way of doing things, where we always rely on data and you always want to show you have that little thought for it. So in this scenario that we shared with you, sending out post survey would fall under the quantitative side. And if you could also share that you would meet with event hosts or even attendees or guest speakers to get quantitative data. Capacity to stay within budget would have been a good way to measure a quantitative side, where you're able to justify numbers and percentage or year-on-year spend and things like that. If you're in sales or marketing background, it's always good to add these things to your resume. Just a quick tip there, or always use percentages to help you justify the numbers that you want to measure, or even achievements that you want to show. And the number of attendees is something that's always good as a reference, because you can show how you plan to scale things. I think scaling things at Google is always important. So with any ideas that you come with, we always ask, is this scalable? Can we scale it next time? If we have to do another event next time, or we have to run another YouTube live session, how can we scale it and make it accessible for everyone, which is really important to our core values there. And then the last point is, will my project plan be used to plan future grand openings? We don't like to reinvent the wheel necessarily at Google. We always think you can leverage your peers for things that exist. So showing this shows that your consideration of knowledge sharing with people at Google or with your teammates, and that's definitely an attribute that we love to look out for when interviewers are interviewing candidates. So with this candidate evaluation, what we've been trying to explain to you is, what the interviewer is looking out for. But to be more clear, I'm not going to go through every single question, but just kind of digest it more quickly. And in the meantime, any questions that popped up on the chat box that you can answer? Cool. We can do one of them.
I have one of them.
So while I was digesting the candidate evaluation or taking notes, let's answer one of your questions.
All right. So the first question that we have is, how technical the interview can be for a business position and a general understanding of some topics.
Or even some coding skills. Okay. So just to read out the question, so how technical is the interview for a business position? General understanding of some topics or even some coding skills, like, is that needed? So I love this question because it's really something that I love myth busting or demystifying, for any non-technical roles at Google, it is a good to have, but it's not a primary thing that we look out for. You do not need technical skills if you're applying for a business role. I know that a lot of people assume that coming to Google, you need to have technical skills. I can put my hand up and say, I don't.
Yeah.
So I've hired for sales and marketing, and I think what's the most important with these type of roles, it's really the problem solving in scenarios and really being able to have a macro approach to things that you're thinking about and not just an operational perspective. So if you needed to hit a sales target, for example, it's not just about, okay, I'm going to call people and get there. It's about, wait a minute, taking a step back, how do you plan your quarter? What are the external and internal factors that can impact how my sales target is met? What should I read up on? Or can I understand the ecosystem? Having that curiosity is really important in the business interviews because it shows your ability to learn and it shows your drive and passion and understanding for Google's innovative products that we're constantly trying to improve. So no, in short, technical skills not required. If it's under the preferred qualifications, it's a good to have. But if you're able to be stellar in your performance for GCA and other things, it's definitely not a requirement.
Great.
Okay, so just to summarize on this slide a little bit, so think about it like, during your interview, don't be surprised if your interviewer has follow-up questions. I have seen candidates that get a bit startled. So they start off with that question initially, like imagine you have to do a program or event, and then they've answered it, and then the interviewer asks more questions. Do not be surprised. It's not that you didn't answer enough necessarily. It doesn't mean that your answers were vague. It's more of the interviewer just trying to be able to assess you well and make sure that they are able to write great feedback for you. So you may see them typing throughout the interviews as well. Do not be distracted by it. You're doing a good job. So just be confident and just stay on track and have a great conversation with your interviewer. And you'll be fine.
Okay. Now we can move to our live questions. We already see quite a few coming in, and we also have some chat moderators who are answering them
with us.
Yes, they are going to answer your questions there as well. But there's some questions that we think would be worthwhile to have Steph here for. So the first question that I have here is, what are some of the roles for someone who has background in management consulting? Do you have any recommendations?
Some of the roles for someone who has management or background in management consulting.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think with management consulting, it's one of those roles where you have a background of owning projects, you have a background in deep diving into things, your strategy and everything. So I would say, like, again, coming back to GCA, which is the most important, which you don't have to come from management consulting, but I guess being in management consulting, it does help you understand that framework a bit better. So definitely roles that you could be thinking about are in the sales orgs, business orgs, or strategy. So just to name a few, like, of the products, that's like Google Ads, obviously, where you work with clients or you get to work with startups or you work with MNCs to help them understand how to use our products because you're deep diving into their business strategy and really understanding how Google can help them grow and also how we can help them market their products better. So that's one of the teams. In terms of marketing wise, we obviously have a lot of product managers. Product marketing is a very huge team. It's a global team as well, where they look at segmenting the market. They understand where we should launch products. They understand and they deep dive. So a lot of it, again, is like data strategy, but again, you don't have to come from management consulting to be in these roles.
Yeah.
And then in terms of strategy, obviously we have like the go-to-market team, where they're the team that decides where and what we should be launching. So they also do a lot of deep dive into different markets or different products and verticals. So that might be interesting for you. But again, there's no requirement and we don't hire a certain standard profile for every role. It's really about how you do well in an interview. So hopefully the GCA, is able to help you out.
Exactly. You can also apply at our career site, Build Your Future. So do take a look there and submit your applications. The next question that I have for you, Steph, is how do Google's process the online assessment to choose the interviewees?
How does Google?
The process for the online assessment to choose an interview.
Okay. So I'm assuming this online assessment is is it the one in the year end? Is there any more from the chat box? Is this person if you're on the chat box, could you share with us which online assessment you're referring to?
Yeah. All right. Okay.
We'll come back to you.
Yes,
but
we will.
please put a follow-up there so we can understand which online, because we have quite a lot of online
quite a
assessments.
few, both technical and business specific.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah, okay. Can a person who does not have business background apply for business posts?
Yes,
Yeah.
you can. So you can definitely apply. And you're talking about undergrad. Okay, so
Yes.
this person is saying, like, can a person does not have a business background undergrad apply for business schools? Yes, you can. If you're able to show, again, coming back, that's why this GCA workshop we hope is going to be so helpful. Practice it. If you can nail it and do it well, like, it doesn't matter what career you come from, doesn't matter what experience you have, it doesn't matter what undergraduate like degree you have. It's really for the business interviews how you perform at that point and the research you do. That way, that's help out.
All right. So we have a question from Andrew. Thank you so much for joining us, Andrew. My question is whether it is possible to apply for multiple roles at the same time, and if it's possible to submit a resume for consideration for Google to find a suitable role. So a general role,
Okay.
right?
So essentially what happens is we will recommend you to apply to maybe 3 or 5 of the roles that you find interesting to you. What I would suggest is first think about what skill sets you want to develop, right? It's not always necessary to think about, where do I fit in, but if you're also curious about something, like, it's perfectly fine. So I would say shortlist 3 teams that you're interested in, apply to them first, right? And then see where that lands. If they think that you're good, what happens is that your profile goes into our database. If it was not a match at that point, we will reach out to you at some point eventually if a new role that comes up is a good match for you. So to kind of answer your question, yes, you can apply for multiple roles, but you do want to show that you're interested in particular teams. Because if not, for a recruiter, it's really hard to understand where can I place him best or what is his best interest. So if you're going to apply to marketing, and apply to more marketing roles, maybe in different locations. Or if you're just really interested in a particular product, then you can always apply to that product, but in different kind of functions. So try to narrow it down for yourself. I hope that helps.
Yeah.
And then for you to submit a resume for general consideration, I'm afraid not. You will need to apply to roles. So we don't have a candidate database that isn't tagged to any roles. You would need to apply to roles so that we first know what you're interested in.
Yeah, and that's ultimately to make sure you guys find the best match possible as well. So yeah, give that a go, okay? So the next question is the hiring process for new grads and experienced applicants different from each other?
So the hiring process is about the same. The only difference is that there may be more interviews. So when we say 3 to 4 interviews, that's like usually between new grad and experienced candidates. It falls between there. But sometimes if more people on the team would love to meet with you, there might be more interviews. But definitely we try to cap it at 5 maximum.
All right. I think this is the follow-up question that we're hoping to answer. So does online challenge take a big part of assessment criteria on shortlisting candidates? And this is the engagement.
Okay. I think the other question is that business, right? Okay, yeah. Okay, so
Similar.
it sounds like both. Okay, so on the online assessment, essentially we launched it last year for Southeast Asia and Greater China internships, which we will be doing again this year. So if you are interested in our internships next year, do pay attention, especially for APAC area. Our applications will open in October. What happens for this process for the online assessment is you will apply online, and if your graduation date meets the minimum requirements that we have, again, doesn't matter what background you come from, we will send you this link to do our online assessment. Once this online assessment is done, what happens is then we will share with you, our team that runs it will send you a note letting you know if you've done really well. But essentially, we do review all the candidates through our sourcing team, but what it does is that this online assessment acts as a bonus for us to be able to really assess candidates who've done really well in there. Because I think there are 2 reasons here. One, we want to make sure everyone has a chance to show us that they understand or experience what GCA is. And the second thing is, like, the best thing that's happened this year, we've had so many candidates come from really different backgrounds that have made it for our internships and not just from business. So I think that's been really interesting. So we hope that you'll participate more. We hope that you'll give us feedback on the GCA online assessment as well, so that we'll be able to improvise and be more inclusive of more students and more applicants.
All right. I think that's it for our time. Thank you for answering so many of our questions. And thank you all for joining us today. I hope this session was helpful for you to understand the interview process and prepare you for your application process with Google. I just want to ask that you all share your feedback with us in the form below. You can find it in the description of the event. And also I want to make a quick plug for the Google Students YouTube page. Be sure to sign up for it. This is your best resource to see videos like this, and also just sign up for other opportunities that you might see through the YouTube channels as well. And of course, apply. We would love to see your applications with us at your Build Your Future, the careers website. So join us for that, and yeah, we look forward to seeing you at the next YouTube Live, which we'll send out through the YouTube channel as well as the Connect with Google newsletter. All right, thank you so much for
Thanks
joining.
for joining.
All right, so long, bye.